What is going on, everybody? Soliday Holiday here, and today we are going to be continuing our Zero to Hero Keystone Master challenge. In this challenge, I am going to be pugging my way to the achievement Keystone Master as a Retribution Paladin. I cannot use any help from friends or my main. So I just want to say thank you to everyone that is watching these episodes and left amazing feedback on the last video. I was really not expecting the series to get that much attention, and it's truly humbling to see everybody leave their feedback and their appreciation for this series, so I appreciate every single one of you. That being said, I also recorded this episode before a lot of people left their feedback and their tips for the Ret Paladin. I have heard your comments and I've read every single one of them, and I am attempting to implement those now, but at the time of recording this video, they had not been posted yet. So just keep that in mind for this episode. On the previous episode, we reached level 70 and ran our first couple mythic dungeons. This put us at an eye level of 427 overall and a mythic rating of a whopping 158. So at the start of this week for the weekly reset, we started out with our very first thing, our Great Vault. In the Great Vault, we actually had the option of Ring Band of Burning Thorns, which was eye level 447, a Vigilant Protector's Bracers, which was eye level 444, a Cataclysmic Signet Band, which would have been 447, and an I don't even know how to say it, a Norman Helm, which was eye level 460. The Ringer Trinket would have been really nice, but the 460 helm was just a little bit too good to pass up, so we chose the helmet. After choosing the helm, that put us at an eye level of 430, and also out of the Great Vault, we got a +5 Waycrest Manor. So this week, it's actually, the weekend event is Time Walking, so it's Time Walking Cataclysm. So what we did is we wanted to run the Time Walking weekly, so that way we could get that cash at the end of it. And the first one that we got into was the Vortex Pinnacle. We ran through the Vortex Pinnacle with 0 issue. We were able to beat the dungeon with no problem. The second one was actually Throne of Tides, and it was weird to be under Time Walking instead of a Mythic Plus dungeon. Then the third, we ran with the same group as the second, and we ran the Lost City of Tol Vir with 0 issue. After that, just wanted to kind of take a break from running the Time Walking dungeons real quick, and we ran the Super Bloom, and we got the cash, but we didn't get anything from the Super Bloom. We did end up killing the world boss, but we didn't get anything from there. But as I was killing the world boss, a rare spawned, which was the Somnambulant Ori. And we actually got a pair of 431 boots from that rare, which was awesome. After that, we completed the Ally of the Dream Wardens and Planting Seed quests. So once we had all 3 caches, I wanted to open them all up at the same time. On the first cache, we got a 444 Waist, which was the Arctic Warden's Girdle, which was a 23 eye level upgrade for us. Then we got a 441 Ring, which was the Snipping Sleet Circle, which was a 26 eye level upgrade. And then we got a 441 Shoulder, which was the same eye level that we already had. So this one just had Mastery instead of Crit and Haste. So I did a little research and I learned the stat priority for Ret Paladins. So the priority goes Strength, Haste, Crit or Verse, and then Mastery. So I kept the ones that we had. After opening these, I just went ahead and completed the Aiding the Accord, but didn't get anything. From here, we went and finished the rest of our Time Walking, and we did a Blackrock Caverns. On the Blackrock Caverns, we actually got a piece of 428 eye level gloves from the last boss, which was an upgrade for us. Then we completed our last Time Walking, which was the Vortex Pinnacle. After completing all the dungeons for the Time Walking, we opened the cache and we got a 460 ring. It was called the Band of Burning Thorns, and that put us at a 440 eye level. So at this point, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but whenever there is a Time Walking weekly event, you can actually run one of the raids from that expansion. So for this week, we had the Firelands from Cataclysm that we could do, and there's an extra quest involved in it. We got a 454 Waist from one of the bosses. It was called the Uncrushable Belt of Fury. So once you complete that quest and you kill the boss from the raid, you actually get a cache of Timed Warp treasures. From this, we were super lucky, and we actually received a 467 two-handed mace. It was Sulfuras, the Extinguished Hand, and that was a huge upgrade. It's a freaking hero level item. I'm at a loss for words. Hopefully our luck continues as it has been, because we've been getting some amazing drops lately, and it's been awesome. With this two-handed mace that we got, it actually put us at an eye level of 442. So after our substantial gear upgrade and our crazy weapon upgrade, it was time for us to go ahead and start hitting some Mythic Plus. I know, 4 minutes into the video and we're finally hitting what the video's about, right? So we started out with a +5 Waycrest Manor. We killed the first boss without any issue. As you guys can probably already see by the video, is I did actually download some weak auras for the Ret Paladin. I don't know why I didn't do this sooner. It's such a huge quality of life thing and it helps out so much. Like I said, I don't know why I didn't do it sooner. So after we killed the first boss, we moved on to the trash after, and you can just truly see how amazing Ret Paladin's AoE damage is. It's awesome. But I also noticed on the Soulbound Goliath that my single target damage is super low. I was barely doing more damage than the tank, and that was super embarrassing. So seeing the tank almost out DPS me, right, I was like, hey, after this dungeon, I'm going to go and look up more and try to see what I'm doing wrong, see where I'm going wrong with these rotations. If there's anything I need to do better on the talents, or if there's anything that I need to do better on the rotation, we'll see what's going on. So I did a little bit of research and I realized that my Avenging Wrath is my opener. I need to use Avenging Wrath at all times. That's I need to use it before I use Final Reckoning, and I need to use it before I use anything else. Also, a big takeaway was making sure that I don't overcap the Holy Power. Once I have my tier set, I know that I can, just so I can get the buff from the tier set, but I'm not even close to that at the moment. So I really need to make sure that I'm not overcapping my Holy Power. So yeah, that was some of the big takeaways from the research, was just making sure that I need to use Avenging Wrath all the time. That needs to be my number one thing that I use pretty much any time that I can. I know that I'm not using it effectively, but I know that I'm not just not using it. So if you guys have any other tips for the single target on Mythic Plus, I don't know if that's just the way that Ret Paladins are, is that their damage is super low on the single target, but any tips would be greatly appreciated. Another thing that I'm really used to is I'm used to going from the Heartsbane Triad, the first three witches, right, to immediately to Rawl the Gluttonous, because they want to use the normally tanks want to use Lust for the first and the second boss, so you skip the Soulbound Goliath for a minute. So that was a little weird, as going directly to the second boss. So on the trash leading up to the third boss, the tank decided to pull all the mobs from inside the boss room, right, to a corner inside the boss room. It's a little out of practice, but hey, if we can pull it off, we can pull it off. But what ended up happening is we started in the back right corner, and the tank started pulling everybody to the back left corner, the front left corner, whatever it is. And so I don't think that the warrior was really tracking what was going on, right? And so the tank is still trying to lead the mobs to the front left corner, and the warrior takes aggro. So this kind of led to a split between the two groups, and the warrior almost died quite a bit, but luckily the tank kind of realized what was going on, came over real quick. I almost died there, and it was actually my first time using my big bubble. I actually used the utility for once on the Ret Paladin, but sadly we couldn't pull it out. The tank ended up dying, and that led to all of us dying, and we wiped from there. So thankfully, when we came back after the wipe, the tank decided to pull the mobs out into the hallway, so that way we could kill them from there and not pull the boss, right? Well, there was a couple ads left in the back of the room, and so the tank tried to pull them and ended up actually pulling the boss too. It's no big deal. We were able to push through, but this, you know, when you're in the Mythic Plus, or just when you start panicking in games in general, right? I don't know what I was doing, but I completely forgot how to use cooldowns. I completely forgot how to dodge abilities. I was just playing horrible. I was purely panicking at this point, which I don't know why. It wasn't that big of a deal. It was just a +5. It's not that big, but my brain just stopped working. But we did end up able to kill the boss, and we moved on from there. So as we led up to the final boss, I was getting a little bit impatient or something, I guess. And normally I'm not like this, is that we just kind of hung out in front of the boss for a second. I didn't see that the healer was in fact drinking, trying to get his mana up, and I got a little impatient and trying to see what's going on. But then we killed the final boss of Waycrest Manor. There was very little issues. So we ended up 3-chesting the dungeon, and out of the chest, I actually ended up getting a gore-crusted butcher's block, which was a 44 eye level trinket. That was awesome. That actually ended up taking us to a total of 440 eye level. So we then got into a +8 Dark Heart Thicket. This group was actually a blast to play with, and I honestly had probably the most fun that I've had on a pug in a long time with this group. This group was actually a full group of paladins. So we had the prot tank, the holy healer, and then we had the rest were Ret Paladins, obviously, right? So I was so excited, and I had so much fun in the first beginning stage of this that I actually forgot to record the trash leading up to the first boss. But from there, you can see where we started out. While playing, it actually looked hilarious to me. The amount of hammers of light coming down, hitting the boss, all of the holy light that was going on, all the concentration that was happening. To me, it just looked hilarious. I loved it. Sometimes it was hard to see what was actually going on the screen due to all of the light that was on there. I'll tell you what about this first boss is I always forget about the charge mechanic that the boss has, right? Until it's about to happen, right? And then, but thankfully on this time I didn't get hit by it, but I really need to keep that in mind for the future because that is something that will easily kill me, right? As we were going through the trash and working through this dungeon, I was really trying to work on my positioning for the pretty much the duration of this dungeon, right? I'm used to being a ranged DPS, so being a melee DPS running these dungeons, I really wanted to focus on trying to work on this positioning. I know especially on this dungeon it really matters because you can really screw yourself and your teammates if you get trapped behind the mushrooms. I've also, as we're going through the trash, I was, and also just the bosses in general, I was really working on trying to make sure that I'm doing my interrupts, I'm doing correct interrupts and going from there. And I think that I did an okay job. I can always improve, but I was really trying to work through those interrupts. So then we continued on to the second boss, Oakheart, and other than standing in some strangling roots like a dummy, right? The boss, we killed it super easily. We then headed through the river. And personally, I will say is I think that Darkheart is one of the easiest Mythic Plus of the season, right? I think it's probably the easiest in my opinion. But I will say is that the river that has the eggs, right? It's probably one of the most annoying mechanics in a dungeon. I always feel like I'm not even close to the eggs and I easily cleared them, right? But I always pop one egg. Looking back at the recording now while I'm editing and doing all this kind of stuff, right, I recognize that I really need to make sure that I know where I'm positioned for my Divine Storm because it shoots out that Divine Storm a little bit past where the mobs are. And there was a couple times that I'm pretty sure I was very close to pulling extra mobs when I didn't need to. And so that's something that I'm definitely going to keep in mind for the future is just making sure that I don't pull extra with my Divine Storm. The third boss, Dressaron, the dragon, whatever his name is, right? He was killed super easily. There was nothing really of note for that fight. So then we went through, we killed the final boss, and it went super smoothly from there. Just still want to note all of the light that's going on the screen, right? So we ended up 3-chesting this dungeon, which put us to a mythic eye level of 375. One of the DPS had a 450 cloak that dropped for him, and it would have been a 3 eye level upgrade for us, but I checked his cloak and he definitely needed it more. It was like a 20 eye level upgrade for him, so I didn't even ask. So then the Paladin pals, right, wanted to continue on. We actually got a plus 11 Throne of Tides, and they wanted to keep going. So as we're going through the dungeon, I was beginning to feel a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more confident with the rotation, some of the defensives. I know I'm not utilizing the Paladin to its fullest ability, right? Right now, I'm still just trying to make sure that I'm not doing horrible on my rotation and try to keep my DPS up. But I was beginning to feel a lot more comfortable and just in general, and also feeling better about doing interrupts and feeling that I was contributing to the team. So as we're going through the dungeon, we make it to the upstairs portion of the dungeon, and we come to the room that the second boss is in, but first you have to clear out all the trash, right? I will say is that in my unprofessional and slightly okay at video games recommendation is that you line of sight this room if you're not already. I will say that anytime that I've been with a tank that hasn't attempted to line of sight this room is we always wipe every single time, I swear. But this tank ended up line of sighting this room and it went super smooth. And so yeah, that's my recommendation as a slightly okay and unprofessional gamer right here. So we get to the first boss, Lady Nazjar. And I'll say is that the boss cast the Focus Tempest, right? And I 100% thought the boss was already summoning the first portion of ads. So I was looking around waiting for the ads to start, and I realized, hey, you're being a dummy. Actually focus on the boss for a little bit. That being said, I'm gonna do my best to try to recognize when the boss does summon the ads, right? Because I feel like whenever the boss summons the ads, that's always when I pop my major cooldowns, right? Where I'm sitting there and I've popped my big ones, especially on my warlock. It happens all the time. So I'm going to try to focus and try to make sure that I recognize that a little bit better. The healer did die during the first ad phase. I don't think any of us really recognized that the healer was dead for a hot second because we were just passively healing each other, right? But I quickly, once I realized, I battle resed the healer. So we killed that boss, and then we continued on to the second boss, and I almost died to the first pool of death because I wasn't paying enough attention, and I actually got the entangled affix on me right when that the ad got to me. So I almost died there, but thankfully the healer was paying attention, was able to get me back up to full. So as I was running away from the second pools of death, right, me and the healer were running together, and I accidentally just completely cut off the healer and almost killed the healer there. So way to go, Soliday, right? After we killed the second boss, we continued on and we went into the hallway where you have to dodge the eels, right? I don't know if I was thinking that I was on auto run or what was going through my head here, but on the last eel, I was halfway through. I decided that at that time I wanted to go ahead and start chatting with my paladin pals, right? But due to that is my character stopped and I stopped moving, and I tried to hit my my mount ability, but it didn't matter. I still got hit and stunned. Thankfully, I didn't get one shot by it, which was nice, but yeah, I don't know what was going through my head there, but thankfully it didn't end up worse. Continuing on, I'm not dogging the tank here, but for whatever reason, I think that he wasn't really paying attention either, and he decided that we were going to go ahead and kill the last boss before the third boss. So instead of going to Mindbender, we went to the last boss. So in the area that leads up to the last boss, these pools here, if anybody can help me out and help me understand what's going on here, I know I've wiped here and I'm still not sure from what. I know that players wipe here all the time, but what is it that kills players here? I know that a bunch of ads spawn, but is it just the ads that kill everybody? Because I'm not 100% sure, me personally. So if anybody can leave a comment and help me out, I would greatly appreciate it. So we then continued the last boss, killed it. It was not an issue at all, but we still had to go back to the Mindbender. In the hallway that leads up to the Mindbender, our heals actually died and then DC'd, and I had a oh no moment, right? But thankfully the healer did just DC and was able to come back super quickly, so that way we could keep going. So as we were facing the last two of the faceless watchers, right, I learned something new about this dungeon. Is when they pull you into their AoE, right, is you most definitely cannot just walk backwards out of the AoE. You definitely need to strafe out of it. So just take my expertise and don't try it yourself, because you're not going to do it. You're going to die, I promise. So after I got res, we continued on to the Mindbender. So the tank pulled the Mindbender, and I don't really know why we did this, but because we already had our enemy forces slain at that point. But the tank did decide to pull the extra ads that were in the back. It wasn't that big of a deal. We ended up killing him without issue and continuing on with the boss fight, but it just seemed a little unnecessary to me. Like I said, I'm not dogging on the tank too much, but just something to keep in mind for the future. So I don't know if the healer was lagging or what was really going on with the healer at this point, but he ended up dying to one of the AoE abilities. So he was battle resed real quick, and he ended up dying to the same ability again after that. Like I said, I'm not really sure what's going on. I'm sure that he was lagging, especially with the disconnect earlier. So the healer died, and once again, I don't know what was up with me. I probably just need to really focus that down and learn the utility of my class, but I panicked and I didn't press a single utility ability, right? I definitely could have avoided dying right here and possibly battle rest and saved the dungeon right there, but I didn't, and I just died and we ended up wiping, right? So we ran it back, and then the tank died and we ended up wiping again. The third time we were finally able to kill the boss and ended up timing the dungeon. We got a plus 149 on our mythic rating, which put us at a 524 rating. This was our first double digit key, so even just timing it, I think that we could have done a little bit better if maybe there weren't lags or whatever, but it felt good to at least time it and get it completed. From the chest, the tank actually got a 457 chest. Another DPS said that he wanted it, and I was like, hey, I could use that also, right? And I'll tell you what, this was a really cool moment, and this is one of the reasons why I love this game. The other DPS said that he wanted it. I said that I wanted it too, and I was like, hey, we can roll for it. But the other DPS looked at my gear and he goes, nah, you need it more than I do, bud. And he actually ended up just saying that I could have it. It was one of those good wholesome moments, you know what I mean? And I appreciated it, and it felt good to be a part of that group there. So once we got this chest, which was awesome, it was a good upgrade for us. That put us at a 446 item level. After this dungeon, the Paladin pals were done. We didn't continue on anymore after this, but I used our flight stones and our crest to upgrade some of our gear. I upgraded our trinket to 450, our legs to 437, our gloves to 450, and that put us at an actual eye level of 450. We then got into a +7 rise. We started with the first bit of trash, and I'll tell you what, it was really awesome to be able to interrupt the Spurlock, the Timesorn Sentinel. As I'm sure you guys know, right, this dude jumps back and begins to pull the furthest player to him, from him to his circle and causes a lot of damage, right? On my Warlock, my interrupt does not work on this guy because my interrupt is based through my pet. So I've never really been able to interrupt this guy. It's a pain in the butt to try to get him. I'm not smart enough to be able to do that, right? But when we were fighting this guy, it felt very gratifying to be able to just walk in real quick and interrupt him before he could cause a lot of damage. From here, we continued to kill the trash and it was super easy, and we moved on to tier. So as we were fighting tier, I never realized that as you're fighting tier, when he uses all of his energy, the balls that spawn, I did not know that they gave you a haste buff up to 5 stacks. I had no idea about that. This is an awesome mechanic, and don't get me wrong, is I always try to do my best to get it in the first place, right? But this is definitely I am definitely going to try to get all of the circles that I can from this point on, right? My team then got to participate in the worst part of the Rise dungeon. I'll tell you what, is I was feeling very confident and thought I was going to make it through on my first try, but sadly I was unable to. I will say is that I've found a whole lot of luck trying to stick to the outside of the first and the last ring and running through the middle of the second ring. I was able to make it through on my second try. Once we made it through, I don't know if you know this or not, if you are one of the first to get through, what you can do is you can walk to the middle of the platform and begin the RP event of the dragons flying to you, right? If you start this event, you don't have to worry about them being pulled. It will just save your team a couple seconds, so that way once everybody gets through, you can just continue on and you don't have to wait for the dragons to fly to you. We then continued on and we went to the third boss, or the second boss. A lot of people go to the time lost battlefield first. I wasn't really paying attention, and the tank had the artillery on him, and I was just standing on the outside, and I just died right there. That was my fault. I wasn't paying attention enough. Then the healer decided to B-res me, and I almost accepted it, but thankfully I didn't, because the healer got the artillery on him, and if I would have accepted it, I would have just been in the middle of the artillery and died anyway. We then killed this boss with no issue and continued. Sadly, on our way to Morchi, the Warlock ended up dying. I'm assuming that he got thrown off the platform, and so we had to wait a whopping 3 minutes for this dude to get back. So as we're fighting Morchi, everything's going really smooth. But when she cast the familiar faces, I was standing next to a pool, so I just waited next to that pool, and the healer tried to get to the same one, but I got it first, and the healer ended up dying from this, which was, I felt horrible, but my B-res was actually on cooldown, so I couldn't battle res him, right? But luckily we were able to just complete the fight without the healer, and we were able to kill Morchi and move on. On the way to the last boss, the healer then got kicked off the side, but thankfully we were moving on the last area so they could just res inside the new frozen area. We were then able to kill the last boss, and we ended up actually 2-chesting the dungeon. This added 118 to our rating, which was put us at a 642. We also ended up getting a pair of 450 item level legs, which was a 13 item level upgrade for us. This put us of a total at 451 item level. I then decided to upgrade our boots that we had to 444, which put us at an eye level of 452. So that's actually going to be it for this episode. Finishing out this episode, we are at a item level of 452. We got a lot of very huge and very lucky upgrades today. We got a 467 item level weapon, which was huge for us. We got we're sitting at 452. We got a bunch of 450 level gear. We're actually sitting at 642 mythic rating, which is not a lot, but I mean, I think at this point we've ran 6 dungeons or so I think that we're doing pretty good. We are going to have 3 chances for loot from the Great Vault. One of them is going to be a 470 item level drop. One of them is going to be a 460, and another one's going to be a heroic, which I believe is a 450, but I'm not too worried about that one. I just want to say, if you're still here, I greatly appreciate you, and I greatly appreciate everybody's support and tips and everything from the last episode. If you're still here and you liked everything that you saw, please consider giving the video a like and subscribing. Also, I'm planning on beginning to stream on Twitch, so if you want to hop over to Twitch, the link will be in the description. You can give the account a follow over there. Hey, I just want to say thank you guys very much, and I appreciate you.